What's up guys, Houndish here, and today as Witch Queen rapidly approaches, we're diving in with a huge breakdown of just about everything to know regarding weapons in the expansion and Year 5. And the goal is to round up everything we know in one place, so we'll cover all new exotic weapons, as well as known changes for existing exotics in terms of sandbox tuning, but we'll also cover the new weapon systems, an overview of vital crafting details, changes to legendary weapon types, brand new legendary weapons, new origin traits, Foundry weapon plans, and weapons which are being removed. On top of the 50 new weapons in Witch Queen, there are loads of system changes to discuss, so I hope you guys find the video useful, and if you do, be sure to hit subscribe down below, and also tick the bell icon if you want to be updated as soon as we get new content. But now let's get into it. And so starting out with changes to exotic weapons, as well as a look at some of the new exotic weapons and armor. Bungie have told us that we're going to get 8 brand new exotic weapons in the expansion, the first of which is Osteostriga, which is the pre-order bonus for Witch Queen, but instead of it being given to us in the normal fashion, we're going to be able to craft it. And in the crafting menu they previewed for it, we can see the exotic bonus icon, and this lets it fire swarms of homing projectiles that land on targets and explode in a burst of poison, which is definitely pretty cool, and it is a 600 RPM SMG. And on the crafting screen we can see both resonant alloy and neutral element crafting materials being required, but additionally, with this being exotic, it uses ascendant alloy and ruinous element, which look to be higher end materials that we'll possibly also use when crafting exotic glaives. And on exotic crafting, Bungie have said, while legendary weapons can be crafted from the ground up, exotic crafting is more about fine-tuning. You may have the opportunity to customize things like barrels or stocks while preserving the exotic look and feel. And if you're looking for a longer range profile for the weapon, or are opting to shred through your enemies up close and personal, through the Enclave, there'll be options to adjust those intrinsic values, but Bungie point out that we'll need to earn these weapons first, in the form of crafting patterns. For the glaives though, the craftable exotic ones will also be class-based, and Titans get the Edge of Action, which on top of the standard glaive combat can place a protective shield similar to Ward of Dawn. Warlocks get the Edge of Intent that has a special ability to deploy a healing turret, and then for Hunters, the Edge of Concurrence allows a tracking chain lightning attack, and this seeks out enemies across surfaces. So it's going to be a lot of fun to play around with those, and we will speak a little bit more about how crafting works in a moment. But otherwise, in terms of exotic weapons, there will be a new exotic launcher called Parasite, and it looks like a lot of fun as we can fire worms which explode on impact and increase damage over time. Then there's the exotic machine gun, the Grand Overture, which is a slug launcher which charges up to launch a barrage of up to 20 homing missiles, like a Cabal Colossus. And this weapon is tied to the Season of the Risen Season Pass, so all in looking at the exotic weaponry, we've seen 6 of them, but Bungie have confirmed 8 exotic weapons, so one is possibly for the raid, and presumably then we'll get another secret drop, perhaps for an exotic quest or mission. And now, while this video is primarily weapons focused, we do know a bit about exotic armor pieces. There are going to be 6 of them in total, and the devs say that we can get 2 for each class, one which is stasis focused, and then another which is non-stasis. And for the Titans, they've shown the chest piece Hoarfrost Z, which replaces the standard barricade with a stasis wall that acts like a strengthened stasis crystal, but still grants all of the benefits of Rally Barricade. On top of this though, for Titans, they also revealed the Laurely Splendor Helm, and they say its cauterizing flame perk allows for sunspots to heal players when they have Sun Warrior, but they also say the perk ensures that a sunspot is created in your location to give you a last fighting chance with a quick grenade and melee recharge as well as longer supers. Then for Warlocks, they revealed the new Secant Filament's Legs, and they say this has the Devouring Rift perk, which will grant a player Devour when they cast their Empowering Rift, allowing for damage from both allies and individual players, the ability to disrupt foes. So these exotic legs will also feature the Overload perk. But then Bungie also revealed the Osmiomancy gloves for Warlocks, which grant an additional Cold Snap grenade with enhanced seeking. And finally, they showed for Hunters the Blight Ranger helmet, and this allows reflected projectiles to deal increased damage. And finally for the Hunters, the Renewal Grasps, which come with the bonus Depths of Duskfield, and this gives Guardians a much larger radius for their Duskfield grenades, while also nerfing incoming damage for allies within the Duskfield's range. But it will also reduce the damage of any targets locked within that space. So plenty of exciting exotic armor stuff to look forward to as well. And now before we move on to legendaries, crafting and more, we should mention exotic weapon changes. And for exotic primary weapons and trace rifles, they are increasing damage versus miners in PvE by 40%, and that will include secondary effects, like perk-triggered explosions. So all exotics that use primary ammo are going to be stronger against minor enemies. However, Chaperone is getting a nerf, and that's because of its strength in PvP, and they are reducing the passive range buff from 2 to 0.5 meters. Then for the duality, they're also reducing the passive range buff in slug mode when aiming down sights from 1.25 to 0.5 meters, but the on Black Wings damage buff will no longer clear on reload. And for Taraba, perk progress will now only be lost by half instead of being totally cleared when we stow the weapon, and we're going to get more Ravenous Beast duration increases for damaging a player slightly. Then for Ruinous Effigy, they're increasing the damage dealt by guarding with a Transmutation Sphere by 66%, and Sphere multi-kills will also count for Orb Generation armor mods. And Lamina's seeing some buffs, so they're increasing the range stat from 44 to 59, as well as the base stability stat from 46 to 56. And for the Aegis Scepter, they've rebuilt the exotic perk, and it will now freeze super recharge and deduct super directly, but super should now drain more slowly while empowered. But also for Deadman's Tail, they're reducing the Catalyst's hipfire rate of fire from 150 to 130 RPM, and players using Lorentz Driver will experience increased flinch. But for Forerunner, they've increased the ammo picked up from a special ammo brick from 2 to 3, and from 4 to 5 with a scavenger mod. And so that's a preview of all of the exotic weapons we know about, some of the armor, and a bunch of the exotic weapon tune-in changes that we're going to see at the launch of Witch Queen. Next though, a brief mention here, and a very interesting new weapon type has been spotted for Season of the Risen. And it appears that the seasonal artifact will indeed be a weapon of some sort, so we got a clip in one of the previews of a hunter wielding the spear like a weapon, which appears to have a heavy ground slam animation, as well as a spear throw, and it is the same frame shown on the artifact icon. So the question becomes, is this going to be an equipable weapon, or, more likely, a relic weapon of some sort, kind of similar to Hive Swords or the Warmind Valkyrie Spear? Perhaps something that we'll pick up in combat. Either way, the artifact will have new combat interactions in Season 16, so that's pretty exciting, and I'd love to get your thoughts on what it could be down below. Up next though, we move to legendary weapons and crafting, and there is a really significant amount to talk about here. So Bungie have said that we are getting around 42 new legendary weapons in the expansion, which is an absolutely massive drop of new rewards. And looking at the crafting preview, we have weapons from the Witch Queen set, like the Come to Pass auto rifle, and also from the Season of the Risen, and we can see the season icon over the Sweet Sorrow auto rifle. And going back to Bungie's original statement, they had said we'll have crafting enabled on Season 16 and Witch Queen destination weapons, as well as Witch Queen raid weapons, which is why the crafting collection isn't as huge as our main in-game collection. And it also means a lot of weapons won't be craftable and will still rely on RNG, like Nightfall weapons, and that includes the Reprised Weapons Silicon Neuroma and Duty Bound that we're going to see in Witch Queen, as well as weapons from playlists like Trials, where the Summoner and another Trials weapon will return. And then of course there will be the Pursuit or Quest rewards, which have more limited perk rolls, like the new Reckless Endangerment Shotgun, which is the Season 16 Pursuit weapon, and includes a new bonus called Steady Hands, which grants a massive handling boost after a kill, plus Snapshot. So there'll be a lot of stuff to go after there. But for the crafting portion, we'll need to visit the Enclave in order to shape a weapon. And this can be accessed via the Throne World map, and is actually in the Mars Play Space bubble. And at the Relic, we'll be able to interact with the crafting menu. But to get access to craftable weapons, we'll need to earn their patterns, which as far as we know, means to unlock the craftable weapon essentially. So to craft the new Throne World auto rifle, you first need to find its pattern through gameplay, and then the weapon will appear in the crafting collection screen, which will be the same for other craftable weapons, although we will be introduced to this system when we craft our first glaive during the campaign. However, we'll also need to unlock the traits to be available for crafting, which is done through Deep Sight Resonance. And this is a new state which certain new weapons will drop in, identified by a red border around the icon. And that means these weapons drop with objectives. And Bungie said as an example, if we find a Deep Sight Resonance auto rifle with the Rampage perk, we'll be able to complete an objective on the weapon, which enables us to extract the essence of that perk, which subsequently adds the trait essence to the crafting table, unlocking damaged traits. And when crafting, that trait can then be applied to a crafted version of the same weapon. Put simply, we need to earn not only the weapon patterns to craft them, but we also need to unlock a lot of the weapon main traits in the crafting system for them to be available to apply to weapons. But additionally, by extracting essence from weapons, we'll gain some of the materials associated with crafting. So in a way, the crafting weapons are going to become bounties in themselves, and completing bounties on weapons with aspects that we like will reward and grow our crafting capability, which is a really cool idea. But we should mention that it's also known crafting will draw from the available perk pool of a weapon. So in order to use Rampage, for example, it will have to be one of the possible perks for that gun, which is exactly the same as how it works with RNG rolls right now, so we won't be able to apply Rampage to just any weapon, but instead on those which have been designated for it to roll on. So that's one side of crafting, but an additional and vital component will be weapon levels, and if we decide we want to craft the best version of a weapon, we'll need to use it to earn those weapon levels, which will unlock more bonuses like higher stat versions of the original frame as enhanced intrinsic archetypes, but also enhanced perks like enhanced snapshot or golden tricorn, which are slightly buffed versions of the normal perks, which are targetable at higher ranks if you want the absolute best possible version of a god roll. On top of this, we'll be able to reshape crafted weapons, so as we gain access to better perks and traits, we can recreate a weapon multiple times and continue to use it until we have the perfect version. So it's looking like a really cool system, and there are other little bonuses. Bungie have said we'll be able to unlock different appearances for weapons through crafting called mementos, and for max level weapons, we'll be able to apply these earned in various playlists to slightly customize visuals and add unique trackers. So it's a kind of icing on the cake for your top crafted weapons. So that gives us a pretty good idea of how crafting is going to work, and obviously there'll be a few elements that we need to further discover when Witch Queen drops, like resources and methods for farming out these weapons, but we'll get to that shortly. Another major change for legendary weapons will be origin traits though, and Bungie have said that every weapon that's new or returning in Witch Queen will have an origin trait determined by its source in a third trait column. That'll be all legendary weapons and returning trials, Iron Banner and Nightfall weapons, but origin traits will only appear on new drops of a weapon and won't be added to existing drops. And they say these traits will vary in effect, and there'll be 14 of them in total shipping in Witch Queen and Season 16, but the plan will be to launch 3 new ones on each season. So for Season 17, they may have one for the raid or dungeon, and one for the seasonal event until we have one for each event. And they say this will help to refresh old weapons from a given source, and some examples of origin traits include Alacrity for Trials of Osiris weapons. This grants plus 20 reload and stability, as well as plus 10 aim assist and range. And when you're the last living member of your fire team or running solo, you'll get plus 20 reload and stability, as well as plus 10 aim assist and range, which is definitely pretty awesome. Then for Nightfall strikes, there is Stunning Recovery, and stunning a champion partially refills your magazine and triggers health regeneration as well as improving recovery for a short duration. Plus there is One Quiet Moment for Crucible weapons, which grants increased reload speed when out of combat, and you get plus 40 reload stat when you haven't dealt or received damage in 4 seconds. Then there is Vanguard's Vindication, and final blows with Vanguard weapons grant a small amount of health. So they'll be granting 7 points of health per kill, and they say depending on the weapon's source, some of them will have multiple origin traits, and Nightfall weapons will be able to select between Nightfall and Vanguard traits. Trials weapons can select between Trials and Crucible traits, and Pursuit weapons can select between Gambit, Vanguard, and Crucible traits, since it can be earned from any of those activities. However, there will be even more origin traits that we'll discover on various weapons from different sources in Witch Queen. Some of them will be on new Foundry weapons, so Bungie say they're replacing the old world loophole with 12 new weapons from Foundries, and they'll come with origin traits themed around the Foundry's personality. So there'll be Soros Synergy, where reloading grants the weapon bonus handling and reduces incoming flinch for a short time, and that'll be plus 40 handling, with 20% flinch resistance for 6 seconds after reloading. Then there's Hake Breach Armaments, and the weapon deals increased damage against vehicles, turrets, barricades, and stasis crystals. And that'll be plus 15% damage to vehicles and plus 30 to structures and turrets. Then with Omolon, we'll get Omolon Fluid Dynamics, and the weapon has increased reload speed and stability for the top half of the magazine. And for stability, that'll be maximum plus 20, reload will be max plus 30, and that reduces as the mag gets lower. And then for Vice, there is Viced Stinger, where there's a chance on damage to partially refill the weapon's magazine. And so while crafting will make a lot of the new weapons very interesting and totally revamp how we can target certain perk rolls and stuff, origin traits and the Foundry weapons have the opportunity to make the world loophole for weapons much more interesting at the same time. So give us your thoughts on any of those changes below. And finally, we get onto more of the technical changes for weapons in general, and starting with legendary weapon archetypes, we're seeing some changes for fusion rifles, and for high impact fusion rifles, the damage per bolt has been changed from 62 to 64, just to make them slightly more reliable, and they've increased high impact fusion rifle PvE damage, and the bonus goes from 15 to 20%. For grenade launchers, they are reducing blinding and concussion grenade damage by 25%, so a bit of a nerf there, and they're totally adjusting rocket launcher subfamilies. So the damage adjustment by subfamily for precision launchers will be 0.95 times, For high impact, it'll be 1 times, adaptive 1.05 times, and aggressive 1.05 times. They also say with the current sniper zoom settings, low zoom snipers are getting more of an aim assist reduction than they needed, and high zoom snipers are getting some pretty wild headshots. So they're reducing the variance in aim assist scaling between low and high zoom snipers. And the cone angle scaler has been increased by 25% on low zoom and reduced by 9% on high zoom snipers. And then for pulse rifles, they're buffing their damage versus minor enemies by 10%. And they're also adjusting a few stats for hand cannons, so interestingly, Dire Promise is seeing +4 range, +3 stability, but -4 aim assist. Waking Vigil will see +6 range, +5 stability, and -3 aim assist. And then Jack Queen King 3 will see +3 range and stability, but -8 aim assist. And Spare Rations, +4 range and stability, but -9 aim assist. And then we have Fellwinter's Lie, and they say the intrinsic perk makes it far too consistent and lethal compared to similar shotguns. So we'll see a +15% spread angle increase, as well as some changes for the Ikelos SMG, which are +1 zoom and then -5 to range, -7 to stability, -8 to handling, and -5 to aim assist, to bring it closer in line with other similar SMGs. Next though, for some global weapon changes, kill trackers are going to be added to all weapons that shipped in Forsaken and later, regardless of whether they're masterworked. They also say though that weapon mods for legendary weapons are now free and instant to insert, so that'll be useful. But also for special weapons in Crucible, they say players now only drop 1 special ammo on death, no matter how much they were carrying, as long as they weren't completely empty, and the maximum we can pick up off a special brick is 1 for a shotgun, fusion rifle or sniper rifle, or equivalent for other weapons, but scavenger mods add to this as normal. And for the moment, that leaves perk changes that we currently know about. They say they want players to be able to build into hip firing more easily, so they're adjusting the hip fire grip perk, and it now increases damage fall off start and end distance by 20%, except on shotguns, snipers, and fusions. Additionally though, they're buffing Adagio, they're increasing the duration from 5 to 7 seconds. They're also increasing the damage bonus, except on bows and fusion rifles, from 25 to 30%. But additionally, it will add a +10 range stat when active, and will have a timer next to the buff. They also say they want to make the reload speed for dual loader a bit less painful, and they've reduced the reload stat penalty from -50 to -35. But additionally, Danger Zone felt pretty risky to use in some cases, resulting in a lot of self-damage, and they've reduced self-damage from 1.25 times to 0.75 times. They're also adjusting tap the trigger on fusion rifles, and they're reducing the stability bonus from +40 to +10. They're changing the max recoil angle scale from 0.5 to 0.875, and the error angle scale from 0.9 to 0.975, but it is unchanged on all other weapons. Headseeker's getting a bit of a buff, and they're extending the buff duration from 0.17 to 0.3 seconds. Eager Edge is getting a change, and they're reducing the lunge distance benefit while airborne by 25%, and it now caps maximum player airborne velocity while active, so it'll be a bit less effective for moving around. And they're also shelving some perks, which means they won't drop on weapons in future. And so Bottomless Grief and Celerity are being removed, as well as Underdog, Shield Disorient, and Air Assault, although they do say they want to redesign Air Assault for a future season. So an absolutely massive list of adjustments to weapons, both in terms of the new stuff, but also the sandbox tuning and stat adjustments, so give us any thoughts you may have. The final things to note is that the following playlist weapons are being cycled out of loot pools. So for Trials, the Igneous Hammer and Soulless Scar; for the Nightfall, the Swarm, Shadow Price, Azumi RR4, and Hungjori; and for Iron Banner, the Multimax CCX, Time Worn Spire, Guiding Sight, and Steady Hand. And for today guys, pre-Witch Queen, that is just about everything we currently know about weapon changes that are coming up in the expansion. If there are any things we haven't discussed in the video, definitely let us know in the comment section. But if you've enjoyed this one today, and you want to be kept up to date with more in-depth information for Witch Queen, definitely get subscribed and turn on notifications so I can keep you posted. Once again, I'd love to get your thoughts in the comment section, and if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating down below really helps us out as well. But otherwise, thanks as always for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys very soon.